Hello, everybody. Welcome to this wonderful interview with Zarnaz Fouladi. And we'll be talking today about a little bit about her medical medium journey and her offerings, and also a little bit about how she came into the offerings that she does have available. My name is Naisha, and I am also a medical medium wellness coach, and I'm also a yoga teacher and host of a couple of these groups that you guys are in. So without further ado, let's just get right in and talk to Zarnaz. How are you?
Good. Nice to be here with you today, and nice to see everybody in the group. So I'm excited to share my story and hopefully bring some insights to people about their healing journey, because I've had a very complex journey, and there's just been so many golden nuggets for learning about healing in that journey.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I think let's just get into it. But my little opening question, I think that everybody always loves to know. Well, I have two, and they're kind of the same question, but like slightly different. And one is, how did you, what brought you to medical medium? And then also, how
Yeah.
did you find medical medium? Sometimes people have like a fun story of like how they came across the
Yeah.
information.
Yeah, I have one of those. So I started my medical medium journey 6.5 years ago. So that was October 2017. And September 2017 is when I got sick. But in June of that year, just a few months before, I started seeing like ads for medical medium on Facebook. And I was like, who's this guy? Why does this keep showing up? And I was like, I just need to buy that book. And I was already a health coach at the time. I had had my spiritual awakening. I was really into my Kundalini yoga practice. And I got the book and I put it on my shelf above my bed. And all summer, the book was like talking to me. I've never had a book talk to me before. And it kept saying, open me, do my cleanses, detox the heavy metals. And here I was doing like 2 to 3 hours of yoga a day. I thought I was eating clean. And I was like, I don't need that. I kept thinking, I don't need that. Like, I have it figured out. But I had all these symptoms. And that was part of the reason I was doing so much yoga, is I was trying to like spiritually evolve out of my symptoms. But so then in September, I turned 40, and a week later, I felt like I got the flu, but it was like the flu that never went away. It was like a truck hit me. And I already had so much fear around the medical system, because my sister had gone through cancer. I'd worked for the government in public health. So I'd studied a lot. So I kind of didn't want to be like victim to the medical system, but I felt like I was dying. And I went to like a regular doctor, then I went to a naturopathic doctor, and he did a bunch of blood tests. And then I was like Googling. And then I just like looked up at my bookshelf, and I was, oh, medical medium. Let me open that book. And I started reading it, and I couldn't put it down. I think a lot of people have this experience. And I got to the chapter where he described exactly what had happened to me. It was like all my symptoms, like a truck had hit me, like everything. And I was like, oh, I have Epstein-Barr. Oh, I have Lyme. Oh, I probably have Hashimoto's. And the next day I went to my naturopath to get my blood test results. And and he hadn't looked at my results. And I immediately started talking about medical medium. And he looked at me like I was crazy, but I was like, I brought him the chapter from the Goop chapter, if you know about that, where it was like the medical medium's name had really gotten out through
And
one of the
this is
shows.
the
Yeah,
first book you're talking about, right? With the
it was
lumps
the
on the
first
cover.
book. Yeah, he only had 2 books at that time. It was just the first book in Life Changing Foods. And he looked at me and he just said, he's like, I'm a man of science. Like I've people are bringing his information to me, but I'm a man of science. And then he pulled out my test results. And I just told him, you're going to find toxic heavy metals. You're going to find Lyme disease. You're going to find Hashimoto's. And he pulled out my test results. And it was like he was reading what I just told him. And like, that was it for me. I was like, all right, that's it. Like I'm on this path. And that's how my healing journey began. And it began 6 weeks after I got sick. And I'm so lucky because my guides had told me if I had not found him, I would have not survived. I was that toxic. I was that sick. And literally for me, it happened overnight. Like I was functional and then I wasn't. So it was the biggest shock of my life, really, to get sick like that.
Did you have any kind of hints of it coming along?
Hmm.
The fact
Yeah, totally. Yeah, my whole life.
that
But I was functional enough that I could kind of push it to the side. I swam, like I was very active, so I think that kind of helped me push through. But I always had symptoms. I had weight issues when I was a kid. I had brain fog. I had like chronic vaginal yeast infections from the time I was like 13. Like I had like the full gamut, and something was starting in that summer. Like things were getting worse. So like deep down I knew something was going on, but it's like my conscious mind wasn't really wanting to connect with that. And so yes, but I went from like maybe stage 2, 3 of Epstein-Barr into full-blown stage 4, like overnight. It was that quick. And it coincided with like my really intense spiritual awakening. So I was doing a lot of yoga. So I didn't really understand about the energetic world. And now I know now, like looking back, I was under also severe like entity attack at the same time. Because I was having these like really, I went into like full insomnia when I got sick. I've never had insomnia before. And in my insomnia, if I ever fell asleep, I was seeing weird things that now I know were like reptilians and other things. But so everything kind of just hit at the same time, like my spiritual awakening and the physical process, like my body just kind of gave out. And I knew deep down that I'd always wanted to be like a spiritual teacher and a healer. I didn't really know how I was going to get there. And deep down, I knew like, yeah, I'd had my spiritual awakening, but now my real journey was starting, like the real dark night of the soul. Even though I didn't want to accept it, I think it took like 9 months for me to accept that what was happening to me, because it's so like shocking to lose your life overnight. So anyways, that started me on my path. I did an Instagram post like right away, and the medical medium shared it. I didn't know anything about Instagram up to that point. I didn't know anything about social media communities, and that just got me in the community. And I've been sharing my journey ever since for 6.5 years. And it's been such a blessing to have like these social media like connections, because it's when you're sick and I was on Mattress Island, like my fatigue was really bad. I became overnight, not only could I not get out of bed, I was hypersensitive. I had like body aches everywhere, like nerve pain, bad trigeminal neuralgia, like you couldn't really physically see anything, but I was like in pretty much pain all the time and not able to move around and walk.
So you just had kind of everything all at
Overnight.
overnight.
Yeah, it was shocking. Like it was, and I think now it was like the only way, because I've always had trouble sitting because I've always been a doer. It was
Mm-hmm.
the only way for me to really sit down and do like my work, which was healing my physical body and to get me really focused. Like all I could do was like, all right, get out of bed, do the lemon water. I had to lay down. Get out of bed, do the celery juice. I'd be knocked down. It was just a constant. It was like that for a long time. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of like, for anybody that's going through this, like I cried a lot that first year. Like I was changing and I didn't want it. I didn't want to accept it. I didn't. And at the same time, like I loved that I found this information because I'd always been interested in health and healing. I just never knew how to eat, you know? Um, so it was this like, I loved it and I couldn't accept that this was happening to me. And then like my physical body started changing. I was super athletic to like not being able to do anything. So you lose all your muscles, and skin was starting to break out. Like everything kind of happened at the same time.
Yeah,
Right when I turned 40.
yeah. On top of that, too, you're like, hey, is this how this goes?
Yeah. And the funny thing is like right before it happened, I felt like I was at the peak of my life. Like I was having so much fun. um I was really into my spiritual. I thought it was spiritual. Now I know like what I do now is the real spirituality. I was kind of caught up in the glitz and glamour of spirituality at that point. But yeah, I'm really grateful that actually this happened and it redirected me. And since then, I've been on a huge learning curve. Like I didn't realize then that I was more sick than most people, because I've worked with a lot of people since then as my clients. I didn't realize like my illness was so multidimensional, and we can get into that more. And it took me a while to figure it out. So when I started doing medical medium protocols, I went full in, and like I remember my first symptom healed the first week, and I needed that because everything else took so much longer.
Yeah.
Like I needed like that one thing, and it wasn't even like it was one of the symptoms I had the longest. So I had vaginal yeast infections since I was 13, like all the time, and they were getting worse and worse and worse, and it was traumatizing. Like it limited my ability to like move out into the world because I was always in discomfort or pain. And that was the first, it like left in the first week,
Wow.
which is like it blew me away. And I was like, all right. And that was when I figured out, okay, remove all grains and beans. Because I was like, it was just quickly in a week. I was like, okay, let me remove the no food. And then okay, grains and beans, boom, gone. So for
Wow.
me, that was like feedback, like, okay, I can't even be on grains and beans. Now I understand why, but back then it's like you're trying to listen to your body and try to figure out what's working, but everything else took like way longer
Mhm.
for me. Yeah.
But when did you, so I'm curious because a lot of people listening or might be wondering this because we were kind of talking a little before we hit the record button.
Mm-hmm.
And there are sort of this certain percentage of people who most people will heal like, 6 months to 2 years. It seems like kind of that's
Mm-hmm.
the general way. But then there's people who take a lot longer, and usually it's a neurological issues that take a lot longer. But some people, it's a lot of other stuff like the fatigue and everything. And I'm sure they're
Mm-hmm.
curious how long it took you to get past that point where you felt like you get up in the morning and kind of be yourself again.
It was pretty recent actually. So I let me say this. I started doing intuitive readings about a year and a half, 2 years into my journey. And at that point I thought everything was just physical. And and like a lot of the first clients that came to me were just physical. Like, and by physical I mean the root cause of their illness was just physical, right? And I would see, like, I would do these readings monthly on them, and they would kind of line up. Like everything would line up. Oh, this symptom healed when the pathogen went dormant, and this healed when, and I was like, oh, okay, but my stuff wasn't lining up like that. When my readings for like my neurofatigue should have been gone, like there was other stuff going on. So that's like that's what I mean by like my stuff was like very multidimensional. Like I didn't know my nervous system was sensitive because I'm also very psychic. I'm also, my attunement is hyped to be very sensitive to my environment. It's why I can do the kinds of healings I can do. So I'm still really, my energetically I'm still very sensitive. So, but not in a way that is disruptive to like my life the way it used to be. It helps me to not only do my inner work or shadow work, but it helps me do my healing.
Mm-hmm.
What really changed for me, it was really interesting because I adopted a puppy last June, and I had all these blocks around, like I didn't think I could be physically active, and she just got me really physically active. And within 3 months of getting her, I was walking an hour and a half a day. I used to swim a lot. I started swimming again. So really, I would say about 6 years for me to start having kind of a regular flow. But I think I could have done it earlier. Um, I didn't really understand my sensitivity like as well until like, oh, I can go out and be physically active and be like energetically sensitive. I also was also like nervous about going out because I can feel everybody's energies. So my puppies really helped me like kind of attune myself to like, okay, um, and that begs the question of like, what is fatigue really about? So it, like medical
Yeah,
medium says, yeah. So there's obviously adrenal fatigue, neurological fatigue, there's also fatigue from cleansing. I mean, that's a lot of, like, your body's doing a lot of work. There's also, like, so you have a physical body and you have an energetic body, and you live in both of them at the same time. But like, we can, for purposes to help people understand, like, the energy body has like lots of layers in it, and you people call like the layers mental bodies, emotional bodies. They get more and more subtle, and they can be very multidimensional and connect to versions of you, like past lifetime, parallel lifetimes, ancestral lineage. And so I had a lot of trauma in my childhood, like pretty severe, and I didn't really understand it all until I started working through it. So I had tons of energetic blockages that were actually draining my energy, and I had a really bad negative entity issue, which I didn't figure out until I was pretty deep into my healing, when weird stuff was started happening to me. And then literally negative entities were trying to kill me as I was like lifting my vibration, because one of my jobs is to help people clear this stuff. So so they were actually draining my energy too. So and then the other piece that was draining my energy is I didn't really know how to work with my particular energetics. Like, my womb space is particularly powerful. Um and that's true for like all women, but like there were certain specifics about like how I am able to work with my energetic body that, well, nobody taught me. So I've had to just kind of figure it out as I've gone along. Because I mean, how else do you figure it out when like everybody's kind of going through this awakening together? And as you activate your light body, which is like higher like layers of your auric field, which is like your energy body, new like gifts can come online and new parts of you can activate. So I've been on that journey trying to understand, like, okay, how do I live in now in this body that's really physically clean, where it helps me connect with my psychic abilities more? But then how do I translate like all these activations to like living in the physical body?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So like fatigue can be very nuanced. And so for some people it's just physical, but for a lot of like my clients that come to me because they're more complex, like there's more layers to it. And
yeah.
so sometimes like if you're struggling with a lot of fatigue, that like for you maybe it doesn't really make sense why you'd have so much fatigue after all the healing. I always say like look to the energetic, because
Mm-hmm.
if you can clear the energetic layers of the blockages, your physical body can not only heal faster, but you all of a sudden it's like you've lost energetic weight. So,
Yeah.
and I'll give you a great example. Like, so my mom, she doesn't do medical meeting protocols. She's not open to it, and she has, you know, sluggish liver. She's old, right? So she's got diabetes, all kinds of things. And a few weeks ago, she was having really bad hot flashes. Okay, so that's a liver issue. She's having them at night, which like it lines up with everything medical medium says. And so she's at the point where she's thinking she needs to go to the hospital. It's happening night after night. And so I was like, okay, let me do I do this healing called angelic soul alignment healing. And I did a healing on her when she was sleeping. And it was a big healing. Like I cleared tons of darkness out of her. And my intention was to assist her liver. And that was about a month ago, and she hasn't had a hot flash since I did that healing. So basically, it didn't heal her liver. It took enough pressure off of like the energetic parts that were affecting her liver that her liver was able to relax. And you
Mm-hmm.
can do that with any symptom. So anytime like somebody comes to me with a symptom, immediately I look at, okay, is this mostly physical, or is it physical and energetic, or is it purely energetic? And depending on what it is, you're going to take a different pathway for healing it. And I'll give you like another example. I had a client that came to me and presented with like anxiety. It was like a cyclical anxiety she'd had her whole life, didn't know where it was coming from. She was doing medical meeting protocols, but I'm always looking for, okay, let's find a faster pathway to heal it. And I did an energy heal. I said, let's do energy healing on this. And I was clearing blockages. And all of a sudden, like an entity appeared. It was an ancestral entity from 8 generations back. That was what was causing the anxiety, because they can kind of they can tap into your body and create emotions. like they attach and they can create emotions and they're looking to feed. So it was coming down 8 generations, which means it was connected to 8 generations of that line of the lineage. We cleared it, anxiety gone, never had it again. So this is where I mean, like, if you want to go into the nuances of your healing, you can get faster healing results. And I only figured this out because I had so much complexity going on with my healing. Like, I kept saying, okay, I'm not matching up to anybody else I'm seeing. I'm doing scans. I'm talking to a lot of practitioners. I was also seeing people get really stuck in their healing, like 6, 7, 8, 9 years doing everything perfectly.
Yeah.
Why are they still stuck? And that I also like stepped in, like I would say like shadow work is really key if you're having something like that. Because in shadow work, so I do energy healing on my clients, which means I can heal a lot of stuff for them. But at some point, you have to take responsibility for your own energy body.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the type of shadow work I teach can assist with that, because it teaches you inner alchemy. So I do a very somatic approach, and I know you're a somatic teacher. And so I actually, because lots of medical medium people are so sensitive in their bodies, they're really good at this work. And because they do medical medium protocols, they can move energy very quickly. Like, it's really amazing. Like, if you're hydrating and clearing out the heavy metals and all that stuff, it really opens you up to your psychic abilities. And most people don't even realize they're so psychic until they come and do a shadow work session with me. And in those sessions, like, you actually go into your blockages. You'll find them just like by sensing in your body. Oh, okay, I have a blockage in my heart. You connect with that blockage. And sometimes it's like your own stuff. Sometimes it's an ancestral piece. Sometimes it's a negative. I have clients clearing out like the negative entities in their first sessions with me. And they don't realize that's what it is. I'm just kind of guiding them through, like, this is how you alchemize that. This is how you process that. And people come in, do that work, and then their life changes. And
Wow.
be it from like physical symptoms, leave almost immediately if there's an energetic root cause, right? People have created abundance through just like one session. Somebody wanted to create abundance and they worked on it, and then all this like money started flowing to her. Now, and I'm not saying it's going to be like that for everybody, but like, inner alchemy work is, I feel like, if you've been doing medical medium protocols for a while, is the next step, especially if you're finding you're not fully healing, you're not fully like manifesting the life that you want, or if you have a lot of emotional triggers, or if you had a lot of trauma, like, you want to work on this. And the way that I work, I started working this way about 2 years ago. And once I figured out how to move energy in my body, like, I worked with a couple of practitioners, and like, they weren't explaining to me how energy moves, and I just figured it out. I just got really curious, and I was like, boom, this is it. This is how I'm going to clear a lot of stuff. And I just started doing it 2 or 3 hours a day, and I've been doing that for about 2 years. I go really deep into my work. And that's like where I became really psychic. And then I started doing a lot of past life work, because I had a lot of past lifetimes that were affecting me. Like, the negative entities weren't just from this life, so I had to unravel lots of things. And then that's when I started running into like aliens, and then that kind of stuff started coming through, like, okay, there's different ET races, and these can affect people's like healing and lots more. And then also clearing the new medical treatment, like, I assist people to clear the energetic effects of that, which are pretty intense. Like, if anyone's had that, it's really important to get it energetically cleared as well as physically cleansed.
Yep. I definitely can feel the energetic element of that, even just having, being around people that have had it,
Yeah.
especially when it was being given so much. I could absolutely feel.
Yeah, it's really dark. And the thing is, like, the way I did an Instagram post recently on this, but they basically, you become a portal to darkness when you get that shot. And I want to be really honest about it, so people really understand, like, negative energy, they're using you to send negative energies and frequencies out, and negative entities. So it's really, and it's affecting your soul at a very like deep, dark level. So it's important to heal all this. And you know, Anthony can't talk, he doesn't talk about it because he can't, right? Like but like all the same stuff that created all the dark stuff that he talks about in the physical, right? The toxic heavy metals, the stuff coming out of the air. Well, it's the same in the energetic, right? These are artificial. They're not organic to our, it's not what God ever intended. So all this stuff in the physical and in the energetic, I feel and I believe needs to be addressed for your soul and your physical body to be fully free.
Yeah, and to fully heal. And I have a sort of an interesting thought as you're talking about, and I'm thinking of a handful of people in the community that that I know from my groups that have been, you know, on this healing path since the beginning,
Yeah.
even 2015 and before, that are still dealing with a lot of nagging symptoms.
Yeah.
And I'm curious about what you think about this. And it's something that just kind of popped into my mind is, you know, you're healing, you're doing the 369s, you're doing all these things, and you have cleansed yourself out, but you're still getting these symptoms. And I'm wondering if there's any possibility that now that you've cleared all these channels and stuff, you're now becoming so much more sensitive to outside things that you're now feeling these kind of outside influences that you have that you don't realize, and now you're kind of dealing with that, and that's holding you back, I wonder.
Well, there's a few things. So first of all, when you start cleansing at a physical level, you're actually pushing more of the energetic stuff to the surface. That has to be dealt with, right? You're not just a physical being. So you push more and more energetic stuff to the surface, and I always tell my clients, if they get to me in the beginning of their healing journey, we have to deal with it from the beginning, because you won't be spending 10 years trying to heal if you deal with this stuff in the beginning. So it's pushing more and more your energetic stuff to the surface. You're also increasing your vibration, right? You're increasing your consciousness. You're becoming, you know, more crystalline, right? Because you're actually, like, your body's made of like all the light codes that are in the fruits and vegetables and herbs that we're eating. So the more light that you hold, and if you have tons of holes in your energetic field, like, that's when you have to take responsibility. This is your mental, emotional, and spiritual health. The more things can get in, that's what happened to me. Like, things can come and like mess with you. Like, negative entities can get in your field. You might be absorbing people's energy. So a lot of people in this community are empaths. They have been their whole life. And it usually that means there's a buildup of blockages you've absorbed from other people. And it doesn't matter, it was not yours. It's in your energy field, and now you're responsible for it. So all that stuff needs to be healed. And as you do that, you start to have better and better boundaries. Now, I recommend like a shielding practice too, but a shielding practice doesn't help you if you've got all these energetic openings.
Yeah.
Right. And you have all these cords to like negative people. So, and like for me, like, I wanted to run away and escape all this stuff. Like, my family had a lot of negative entities, and, you know, I was living with my mom, but like, that was my training. Like, I thought my mom like was the meanest, baddest person. And my relationship with her is completely transformed. I think she's a beautiful soul. Like, I really can see her now. But what I did is I did so much inner alchemy work that my energy bodies become so strong that anything that gets into it alchemizes. It either leaves or it's going to alchemize. And it's been massive amounts of work. And as a result, all, like, my mom would trigger me. Like, she would say stuff and I'd be like, oh my God, I'm such a victim. Like, and not, first of all, she doesn't say that stuff to me anymore. She didn't change. I changed. I don't react to that stuff. So it has nothing to feed off of when she's doing that. It's totally unconscious on her part. And she's become a much nicer person. I also do energy healings on her, right? So I'm pulling the negative entities off of her, because a lot of times when somebody that is kind of dark and says negative things, but their heart is actually good, there's usually negative entities at play. So, yeah, she's totally transformed in my eyes. You know,
yeah, and the way that you're holding yourself, those they know that, okay, this isn't my food. Like, you know, I'm not going to fed by this, so I'm not going to bother
Yeah,
anymore. So
yeah.
now
It,
fair.
right. And my mom's a good person. There are people out there that are just dark, right?
Yeah.
And those people I'm like, okay, I don't want it in my life, right? So yeah, so it's really important to take responsibility for your energetic body, your traumas.
Mhm.
And I had like my very first client that I ever had, she did medical medium for like 6 7 years and she quit because she didn't heal anything. And for her, like, okay, and she's very sick. Is a pretty extreme case. And it's not the issue with medical medium protocol. Absolutely not. Her illness had very low root cause and physical factors. It and extreme trauma that she's not conscious and aware of, extreme soul fracturing, really bad negative entity issue around abduction, like all that. And for somebody to deal with like that level of stuff, you have to be able to raise your consciousness.
Yeah.
That's like the number one key is like healing all this stuff. You have to be willing to look at it and to raise your consciousness. And
And
this
that's
is
kind of
like
the
the
point of all of the healing in the first place, is to feel
yeah,
good in our bodies so that we can get to that point where we're aware
yeah,
and that.
yeah. And I want to acknowledge that this work is hard. It's hard. It's like doing medical medium protocols is hard enough, right? Then you get used to it. But the consciousness work, it can be really scary. Like I remember when I started my inner work process, like I got dragged into it. I didn't really mean to, because I remember like about 3 years into my journey, there was weird stuff going on. Like I was doing these scans and pathogens were activating out of nowhere in my body. Weird stuff was happening in my life around me. And I got to this psychic that I felt like I really needed to talk to. Like, because nobody in the medical medium community could explain what was going on in my body. Like weird pains in my body that nobody could figure out. Like I was fat free for like 2 years. Nothing was shifting. And I was like, I need to talk to this guy. And I was able to talk to him. And I asked him what's going on. And he said, you have a really bad negative entity issue. And it's coming through your ancestral lineage. And he said, you're meant to clear it. And the angels actually came in like at some point and told me that too. So when I started dealing with it, that's when I got into energy work. And I first started with emotion code, and then I went into body code. But in 3 months, I kind of exhausted that tool for me because they weren't getting me to where I wanted to go. And I was starting to see negative entities. And the negative entities started really attacking me pretty badly. And there's people in this community, I want to say, that have negative entity issues and aren't aware. And this can be a major reason you can't heal, because negative entities can create all the same exact symptoms pathogens do. And why? Because these same negative alien races that are these negative entities created all this weird stuff that we're dealing with. Okay. So so I found my first like good healer to help me with the negative entity issue, and she like would clear them, and then like new things would start attacking me, and I'd be like, I thought the energy body was just like one layer, you cleared it, like, but it's
Yeah.
very nuanced, it's very layered, you know.
Nothing is
It's
ever
kind
simple with it.
right, it's kind of like detoxing, it's layered you gotta go. And eventually she said, you got to do inner work. And I was like, oh, and I was really scared to do it. I was really scared. And I think it's everyone's fear of like seeing themselves, really seeing their shadow,
Yeah.
seeing where they've been abused or hurt or been abusers. And so yeah, so I just decided to start doing it, and I just would do it once a week. That's how I started with inner child healing. And it was pretty intense because I had a lot of abuse, physical, mental, emotional, energetic abuse growing up. And then the deeper I got into it, the more like I became really interested in it, because I was like, oh, this is how you move energy. Oh, this is like meeting myself. And it's been a journey. It's been really intense. And I was like, the other day my guides gave me this metaphor, like an apple. That was kind of perfect. It was an apple. And like imagine like this is your subconscious, like all your traumas, your wounding. There's also magical things in there too. And as you're doing your shadow work, it's like you're just taking a little bite out here, a little bite. You're just starting at the surface, where it's easy. You're just taking little bites, little bites, little bites, and you want to get to the core, which is the core of your soul. It's going to be your core wounding, the core parts of you that you've kept really guarded and private. It takes time to get, and you don't start with the darkest place in the beginning. And that's like where I've just gotten to, like to the center. And it's been 3 years of pretty intense, dedicated practice.
It's like
And
the
the
layer of the liver, you know, how he says there's
yeah,
layers of the liver, and it takes a long time to get to that core center of the liver. And that's
yeah,
really kind of yuckiest stuff is. That's where the
yeah,
body, it's like the same.
yeah. Yeah, and I've just gotten to the yucky parts, but I'm so much braver, I'm so much stronger because I worked through all those layers of the apple.
You've had a lot of
Um,
wins. Okay, yeah.
yeah, and like the angels have really helped me. Like they've brought me messages. Like, there was times where I was like, I can't live through this like another day. My journey's been really challenging. And even like the one of the healer that every healer I've worked with is like, you're more complex than anyone I've met. I'm like, yeah, I know. Like, yeah. So, but it's okay. It's setting me up to be like a really powerful healer and being able to face really deep levels of darkness and shadow, not only for myself, but for my clients and for the collective. Because the more you do this work, the more not only are you healing yourself, all versions of you, right? Parallel selves, past selves, future selves, ancestral versions of you. But you're also like, just by doing this, you're changing people around you.
Yeah.
And they don't even realize it. And I also do work for the collective. There will be, so this is the other nuance. Some people in this community are actually clearing and healing for the collective. And sometimes that makes the journey harder. And when I realized I was doing this, I was like, I don't want that job. Like I was like, you guys gave me like such a hard job to my guides. Like my list is like really long. Like, why are you adding this collective stuff? And
Well, as
I
he
kept
says,
saying,
the sickest people are a lot of times the strongest people.
yeah, it's
And
soul's gold.
yeah,
Really, like
and
you
you're getting
really go, yeah, you go
yeah.
through this intense alchemy process. And
Mhm.
and there's been so many times in my healing journey where I've fallen to my knees and been like, I don't want this. I'm stuck. I don't know where I'm going. Like, um, and like for me, what's pushed me is like, I know I'm gonna get there. I love medical medium's knowing tool, the one where you like imagine the knowing in your hand. Like I've been doing it every night since because I know I'm gonna get there, and I'm really close to being done with this like project I've been working on, like freeing my soul fully from all these different timelines and dimensions, which I feel in my body. Um, but yeah, I just know I'm gonna get there. I don't know when. Like my team never tells me when. They always
Mhm.
tell me you're gonna get there. And I have the the incredible ability to get up the next day, even when I've like been knocked down to my knees, to the depths of darkness, and I just keep getting up. And it's like it's in my astrology. Like it's like I have that ability. And so the dedication to healing is the number one most important thing, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And like some people might be listening to me and being like, oh God, this sounds insane. Well, some people will never need all the stuff that I do. Some people will just heal with medical media information. This is physical stuff. Some people will heal with this physical and meditations. That's all they need. And some people need to go a lot further.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's like, it didn't just happen overnight that you need to go a lot further. It's been, in my perspective, there's been a lot of lifetimes building up to this. And it's not your fault. Like medical medium says, like you don't choose your incarnations. And I like wondered about that for a long time. And because I've done so much past life work, the reason I feel he says that is because okay, so the same, I was talking about these negative alien races that have kind of messed with us. They've also messed with our reincarnation cycles, because as soon as they put a trauma in you, is it from a negative entity or an abduction or whatever it is, that's not organic to this universe, they're affecting your incarnation cycles. Because
Mhm.
now that trauma is in your energy body. and it has to get resolved, even though like you never created it, just kind of like getting one of these pathogens. You have to still resolve it. And so the more lifetimes you go not resolving it, the more it kind of traps you into their lower timelines that they're trying to
Mhm.
get people, like lower incarnations. So like my goal is to get out of that so that I can consciously choose my incarnation. So I'm no longer caught in their trapping system, some people call it.
Yeah.
That's like where this level of work then has a lot of meaning for people who want to get their soul kind of really free and their incarnations really free. Because who wants to come back and deal with this?
Not me.
Right.
I
Yeah.
thought about
Yeah.
that. Like, oh, I hope I
Yeah.
don't come back. And how he talks about, where the earth is going. And I think a lot of us in the community are just like, no
Yeah.
birds, sea turning red and everything. And I'm like
Yeah.
thinking, this is already hard enough as it is. And the world is still
Yeah.
beautiful in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
I
You don't want to
got
be on that timeline. You want to
no.
be on the timeline where everything goes to organic. Like you
Yeah.
want to put yourself in that timeline.
Yeah.
So, and you want to help you, not only yourself, but the collective get there.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like that's what medical medium is trying to do, because otherwise, if everything was doom and gloom, why would he be teaching us this?
That's actually a good insight too, because
Yeah.
he's not just here trying to get us to eat salads, as he jokes. He's like, I'm the salad guy. But and
Yeah.
you can sort of see, behind his face, like what he's really thinking sometimes. Like, after watching him for a while, I try to
Yeah.
always, what is he really saying behind there? But I think that
Yeah.
is he's like, it just seems, especially from people coming new into the community, it just seems like, oh, well, it's just this. You don't realize, like, no, the depth of the information. That's why he says these books are very spiritual, because um there is so much more meaning in every part of every sentence, if you think about
Yeah.
it, where it's
Yeah.
bringing you. And there are a lot of
Yeah.
people out there who are healing on all these different levels you talked about, but most people don't bring them all together. A lot of people don't. And
Yeah.
what his information is doing is taking, which I think is like the coolest thing. And that's what I love about this spiritual group, and having these conversations and kind of listening to everybody, because everybody is coming to medical medium from a different approach, a different background, different
Yeah.
information, and then also even taking the information and applying it and using it as a lens for whatever they're doing. And it's bringing everybody who's doing more emotion work, more, the type of work that you're doing, or just the physical, and we're all coming together and we're learning that we need to do all of these things, and we're teaching
Mm-hmm.
each other the parts that we don't know. And
Mm-hmm.
now there's people who, because when I first came in, I would say I was somewhat like spiritually traumatized in a way. I was sort of
Mm-hmm.
very anti all that stuff. Just, long story, but and getting into this stuff, it reopened me, and it opened me up in a way that I didn't think I was ever going to be able to open up again. And now I'm
Yeah.
learning information from people like you and different people I'm talking to. And I think we're all kind of, as you said, we're all healing each other collectively by teaching this stuff. So the cool part about this community is that we're now all maybe focusing on the whole big picture of healing instead of just one part. People will get stuck in one part, and they don't realize,
Yeah.
people who are very spiritual, but then they're not eating, the right way, or the other way
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I always say to people, my friends in the spiritual communities that don't do this, I'm like, without this physical part that medical medium teaches, right?
Mhm.
You can't really go that far in your spiritual practice. Like I have a friend who's like a shadow work coach, and she does all shadow work, but she drinks and eats crap. And I know that her emotional centers of her brain aren't very strong. I know her liver is sluggish. So how much can she actually heal her shadow, her consciousness, her wounding, if she's not addressing the physical? Because some of that stuff is going to be rooted in physical factors. And to have like the elasticity in your brain to like work through some of these bigger consciousness pieces, you need the heavy metals out,
Yeah. You need that
right?
soul physical connection to be as strong as you can have it.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this
Exactly.
this is like, to me, like the most pure spiritual path is like by you build your foundation first. It's your physical vessel. right? When I first had my spiritual awakening, I was so uncomfortable with my physical body. I was trying to like get out of my body. And when I got sick, I was like, oh, okay, I'm actually can't get out of my body. Like
Yeah.
my healing actually has to come through my body. And there's been so many surprises along the way, but every block I've had, every challenge has had such valuable teaching in it. And I always say to people, like, your most challenging symptom is gonna teach you the most.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And there's gonna be
they're still working on it, I think, in some ways. Like that one that's
yeah,
just doesn't want to go away.
yeah,
They're still because
yeah,
there's something there that you're still working through,
yeah,
I think so.
yeah. So yeah, and like you can't compare your healing journey to anybody else because people's symptoms will heal in different orders depending on like the root cause. Like my menstrual cramps, like they've been like my hardest symptom. I didn't really recognize, like, medical meme says your womb has its own soul. Like it's like all that stuff just recently landed for me because I was like, okay, I did everything and my cramps aren't shifting, but I have clients who like, well, the cramps just shift really fast.
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know and so for me there's been lots of like metaphysical spiritual parts to healing my womb. Um and like so many people in this community are also light workers, so they're activating into their gifts. And like in every person that comes to me that I do healings on, like they like every soul has like such a special like mission to do here. They have special gifts that they're remembering that they also learned in past lives, that they're remembering and activating. And the more that you cleanse physically, the more you can kind of step into those roles. But you also need to do the shadow work because the shadow is going to block you from fully embodying like your higher self. And then the more you do this work, the better you can manifest the life that you want.
Yeah, and that's something I'm
Yeah.
noticing in these interviews I'm doing is one of the things I love is that as people heal and uh, not even, you don't have to be fully healed, but you're on that path. So many people are now like stepping away from whatever job they were doing and
Mm-hmm.
finding this other type of work that is so much more
Yeah.
fulfilling for them. And I think that's part of the healing process. And I have my own story of that as well. And I think
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's really amazing to see the difference. Imagine if everybody in the world was on this healing path, like the difference that the world would be, like
Yeah.
because people wouldn't be able to do some of these sort of jobs that, so people would be wanting different things. It would just change everything, which I think is amazing because now there's
Yeah.
millions of people in this medical medium movement. And the more of us out there, the more it's just kind of gonna hopefully
Yeah.
spread out and, be
Yeah.
changing the world, which I think is
It is for sure. We're
possible.
choosing an organic path. And so the creations that come out of somebody who's choosing to live organically are going to manifest so differently. Like you're not going to create something dark and inverted. You're not going to like, I want to create this thing with chemicals. Like you would never do that.
Yeah,
Right. So you would, everything would be like from this place of like wanting your highest healing and to offer something that does the same for those around you, be it if you're a teacher, a lawyer, a healer, like whatever you do, it's going to translate into the work. And
exactly.
it's magical. And the more like the world is like, I keep seeing like it's going to become more and more organic, like, you know like at all levels, the more people that choose this. But there's like the fight between the light and the dark.
Oh, for sure.
Like, but yeah, I mean the people who do this work are the ones that are going to live the longest
Yeah.
and are going to be the most creative. So
Yeah. And I mean, as an example for me, I'm now doing health coaching and yoga instructing and different things like that. But I was a hairstylist before. And
mhm.
you think like, how are you going to bring all of this into that type of a job? But guess what? I ended up leaving the salon I was at, opening up my own place, only using natural products. And then and that's how I became a health coach, is I was teaching my clients because I know these
Mhm.
people 10, 15, 20 years. And I'd see them having symptoms. And then here I am studying all this stuff. And I'm like, well, So then I would like strategically leave a certain book, in front of them, like, and then if they picked it up, I would allow them to ask before I said anything. And then I kind of would start the conversation. So, I mean, you can bring this into, even something like hairstyling, which you would never think would be one of
Yeah.
the furthest things from being like a spiritual type of job, but that's how it ended up being. And then I had
But
people calling me
yeah.
for that more than hair appointments. So
Yeah.
I mean,
But it is spiritual because you're really connecting to a person's soul when you're doing their
yeah,
hair, right?
you really are.
And their hair is like spiritual,
It
you
is.
know, like so. And like then for me, somebody like I don't go to hair salon because I don't know people like you where I live, but if
Yeah,
there was people like you, I would be going to them. That's where I want to put my money. Like people
yeah,
who are in this community who are actually really caring about what they do and how they do it.
exactly,
So
exactly.
yeah, that's
That's
so cool. Yeah.
why I want to keep up with these interviews, and anybody who's doing, and I call it like medical medium aligned, and it can be hairdressing, it could be anything, because you're bringing that into it, and just exactly, and like having, just getting it out there so that we can support each other and like just spread it out there more and more.
That's beautiful. I wonder if you'll like, because you understand hair so much. There's like all these metaphysical qualities of hair. Like I'm sure like you could probably pick up that information really easily. That the things that I've like mastered when I go in to work on it energetically, I can get a lot of information about it. Like,
Yeah,
so that'd be interesting.
I
You could probably
definitely would
teach a
say.
whole course on that.
Oh, I mean, I have to
Yeah.
say, now that you're saying it, when I'm talking with clients about health, it's very similar to the consultation I would have when I
Yeah.
was going to be doing their hairstyle. Like, okay, we're going to be
Yeah.
doing this. It reminds me, because there is a lot
Yeah.
of I mean, with any job, communication, that's the part, and you have to be really
Yeah.
good, not just talking, but just the energetic communication, all of that. And it was
Yeah.
definitely it's funny that there is a huge, I pull a lot from that, I call it my past life. I pull a lot of that.
Yeah. But the
But
thing
that's
is, everything you've ever done is like preparation for what you're doing now.
exactly,
Even
exactly.
like my first degree was in architecture, and I was like, why did I say architecture? Well, now I just started doing house clearings for my clients. So I was like, oh, okay, I really understand buildings. I really understand connecting to the land. So now it's really useful, but it took like, I don't know, 30 years for me to put that together.
Yeah,
So it has meaning now. Like,
yeah, it makes sense. That makes sense.
yeah, yeah,
So now that we've said all of that and you've talked about your different services, I guess we'll put it in the notes below, links to it. But how can people find you? You're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, and then do you have
yeah. So I'm most active on Instagram.
okay, so that's
Um, yeah, I have a Facebook group if people want to join. And I'll put the link to that. Also my website. So I do offer like complimentary discovery calls. So if you like go to my website lays it out really clearly, but if you're unsure where you need help, you can book a discovery call. And some people, need help tweaking their medical medium protocols. Some people need the energy healing part. Some people need the shadow work part. Some people need all three.
mhm.
So I help really people unravel like where they're stuck.
Like
And to
where
excel.
there's a lot you covered, so you help people like
Yeah.
it's where to start. Because like if you're thinking you
Yeah.
need all, like, okay, what do I focus on first?
Yeah, then they can do a full package with me and
Yeah.
I can guide them. So yeah, so go to my website. So I do intuitive readings for the medical medium protocols, teaching people how to move through the healing phases and how to accelerate their healing. I do energy healing, which includes the negative entity release, past life healing, soul activations. Like you'll meet guides or elemental beings, like animal beings that are connected to you. And then the shadow work piece. So that's teaching you how to really, it's a form of energy healing, going into your body, finding your blockages, and then teaching you how to clear those blockages because each blockage has a different pathway. And then for my clients that are really ready and wanting to go deep, I do past life regression work. But most people, it takes a long time to get to that place where they're kind of ready for that. Um,
Yeah, you don't want
yeah,
to dive into that right away, right? I made that mistake. I made that mistake.
yeah. I mean, you can, but like, I've been on that part of my journey for a couple of years, and I found Dolores Cannon a few years ago. So she's a famous regressionist. And I read all her books. And I was like, I don't know why I'm reading this. I'd never want to do regression. But it ended up being really important to me. And I do I do regularly actually for me. But yeah, it's really when you've done enough shadow work that you're confident in your psychic abilities, that then that's the next step. If you want to know more information about your soul, this lifetime, other lifetimes, etc. Yeah, those are very activating, so I don't recommend starting there.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense. That makes
yeah,
sense. A lot of us wouldn't know that. So I think, yeah,
yeah.
it's
That's
very
like,
similar to like,
yeah,
where do I start with my medical medium? Like, where, people get confused with that. And then when it comes
yeah,
to stuff, it's like, there's so much to do. Where do I start? So it's nice to have a
yeah,
guide for all.
yeah. I
Right.
think my practice is unusual because it's so holistic.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have like never guessed that this is what I was going to be doing. Like I love what I do because all my sessions are so different. Everybody needs different kinds of sessions. I couldn't have written a better job description. And even though I resisted every single step of the way, like I'm really happy with it. And I'm constantly growing, evolving, expanding, which is what makes what I do unique. Because
Yeah.
I learn every energy healing session, every shadow work session, every session I do, I'm learning. I'm expanding my consciousness, and I'm constantly doing my own inner alchemy process.
Yeah.
So yeah, like we don't really stop evolving and growing,
Yeah.
and
You're never,
that make
never
yeah,
done. Even in the healing past process, you might get past all your symptoms, but there's still more to, there's just always another layer that peels off that you don't necessarily
yeah,
notice there until it comes off and you're going, oh wow, okay, well there's
yeah,
that
yeah,
one.
yeah. So it's a total, it's an unveiling, right?
Yeah.
And I at this end it's fun, but it was hard. I mean, it's hard. It's a hard journey, right? It's not for the faint of heart. It's why a lot of people don't choose to heal because they look at the work and they think, well, that's hard.
Yeah.
So, but if you know, I love it. So it's
It's
taken
worth
me a long time to
worth the
say
work.
that.
It's worth the
Yeah,
work. Yeah. And
yeah.
when,
I mean, and it's truly soul's gold, like Anthony
yeah.
said.
Yeah.
So
And like for those of you that are in the trenches of some of this stuff, just hanging in there and yeah, and coming from people who've gone through different things. And some of us have to go, don't have to, but just because of where we are, we have to go through darker tunnels, I think, than others to get to the place that
yeah,
you want.
yeah. And it's not your fault if that's you. I used to have like a lot of shame around it and be like, why is my stuff is always hard since I was a kid. And now I'm like, oh, like I've grown so much as a soul. There's that and that much more. Like and it's just made me like a more compassionate, more loving, more kind person.
Yeah.
And I'm so
You take all
grateful
this
for
with you. You take all this with you. Oh, cool.
yeah, yeah,
Did that
yeah.
just, you take all this
No,
with you too, because some people will say like, oh, why should I, heal my body? It's not, I'm not taking it with me in a way, but it's actually, well, but you do though. You do take it with you.
yeah, yeah,
You do.
you totally do. Yeah. And it's like such a deep level of satisfaction. Like my soul is very happy. Like even though I haven't figured everything out, I feel and I'm it was a recent shift for me. Most of my life I couldn't say that, but I feel really like my cells in my body feel really happy. And it's coming from my heart emanating out.
That's beautiful. And I can
So
see
it's
that
really cool.
in
Yeah.
your smile on your face. And that's
Yeah.
a wonderful place to be able to be, just,
I never thought I would my whole life. Yeah.
yeah. See, and if you can do it, then
Yeah.
it can be done, it can
Yeah.
be done.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Because you haven't had an easy path. And, you know, yeah, that's good. That's very inspiring for other people to hear
Yeah.
and hear too. Well,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much for sharing all of that. That's amazing. I'm sure everybody's going to love hearing this. And if you guys want to hear more, just look below in the comments and then we'll link all her stuff. So you can find her in her groups and get that free discovery